Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be with our next two guests. They are the authors of this book, Next Level Leadership, Navigating the Dramatic Changes Coming in the 2020s. We're talking about Ken Edmundson and Shad Berry. How are you two guys doing?
Doing great.
Hey, Jeremy, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. So I've read the book. It's an amazing book. It tees up a lot of the things that we're already feeling, and it sets the stage for what's ahead. So let's start. Give us some context. Let's start with you, Ken. Give us some background on what led you to write this book.
Well, the simple answer to that is I felt, as many of you did, this sense of change that was occurring in the around 2006, 2007. And in hindsight, now we see that it was a significant change for all of us who've been around the business world for at least the last 20 years. There was a powerful change that occurred in that time frame that was unlike any of the other historical events. We all remember certain things that happened. This was not well published or well known, but it's best demonstrated by what the Netscape CEO said. He said that was the year that technology began to consume or eat the world. Now, if you go through a list of things that happened in that 12 to 18 months, it really changed the world. Now, back in the 60s, a guy named Gordon Moore, who was one of the co-founders of Intel, said, eventually the chip is going to go so fast and create so much change that it became known as the Moore's Law, that change is going to occur so fast, you're not going to be able to keep up with it. And yet that began happening. So here we are in 2020. Shad and I have been talking about this for a long time, several years, been working on it. Actually, we've been testing out our model and all that for a couple of years. The book, really, we didn't plan to write it till next year. And we said, COVID didn't cause it, it exposed it. The economic destabilization didn't cause this change, but everybody's feeling it. This reason anxiety has become the number one mental health issue out there. So we are creating, or have created, we'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure, a path for this new decade of leadership. Unlike, you can't take the old models and remodel them. People are going to require different things of their leader. I want my leader to be smart and intelligent. I want them to have the force of personality. I want them to put me where the right tools and techniques are. And that's being smart. But you cannot stay up with that. You can't do it all. So we're building this second piece to it. Shad will talk a little bit about what we call the journey out, which is continuing to do the right thing as a leader. But the journey in is about what you're doing emotionally to maintain your own health. We call it being aligned, which is having the right tools and techniques for your business, but also being integrated, which is really about your emotional well-being, your relational integrity, your emotional intelligence. There's so many things that have brought us to this point. And we wrote the book. We didn't know if COVID would be over in October. We were writing in the summer. We didn't know. Little did we know that it was just going to get exaggerated, exacerbated. So the path that we're creating, as we say, it's a path, not a pill. We felt like the book would just, really introduce that concept. And that's what we're doing. It's only 110 pages. We're just outlining that. So Shad has partnered with me in putting this together. It's got a lot of interesting insights to it. Shad's bringing the emotional piece to it, the therapy, if you will, piece to leadership. But it's going to be so important going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So Shad, what would you add? Because when you look at the rapid acceleration of technology, when you look at the economic disruption, obviously the pandemic, the anxiety, what would you add to kind of the precursors to this? And then as Ken alluded to, this is an outward journey, but it's an inward journey, and you have to have both sides to be able to take that next step forward. So what would you add in terms of the context of the book?
Yeah, so even before COVID hit, another Harvard Business Review talked about the loneliness pandemic among leadership. So my role in the life of leaders and in the life of this program is what I call, I'm the excavator and the advocate. I'm generally playing the role of excavating what's underneath the surface that's really driving the ship, but people don't know what to call it, what to do with it, what to name it. And then I advocate for that part of the leader because he or she doesn't know how to speak up on their own behalf, because what's typically been expected of them and of us as leaders is to keep up and shut up. Keep up, keep pressing forward. I do think there have been great strides in the emotional and relational component of leadership, but there's still countless numbers of cultures and leadership that is still very unhealthy and imbalanced, and very fear and shame oriented. And so what we wanted to integrate, because the tools and techniques are vital, like you have to have these tools and techniques. However, you're seeing across the country, our treatment centers and our addiction recovery facilities and all sorts of other byproducts of that unhealth, which are a result of a lack of relational connection. And so when we say leadership is foundationally relational, that requires at least an emotional intelligence. And an emotional intelligence is simply the ability to know what you're feeling, name what you're feeling, and take responsibility for what you're feeling. But that emotional intelligence has to lead to a relational integration or a relational integrity, meaning that, Jeremy, if you said something that was hurtful, or you did something that caused harm to me or my work, that you and I could actually have a healthy dialogue or conversation that relationally strengthened our connection, not where I blamed you and played the victim and what we call get into reactivity. And so there's really what I borrowed a term from Brian Friedman, who wrote the book Failure of Nerve, but we're really in a place where it's time for a revolution in leadership development, because what we're doing now is not sustainable. And the shame factor the toxic shame that surrounds our teams is that we think, and the leaders think, we're supposed to somehow be able to keep up. And we're trying to say, look, it's okay to get off this treadmill. And Ken uses the illustration, and we've got a little video that's hilarious of it's like you're on the treadmill and somebody bumps you up to Usain Bolt speed and you fly right off the back of that thing. And that's kind of what we see happening over and over and over again. We see people flying off the treadmill. And so we'd like to prevent that. And we'd also like to be at the back of that treadmill and be like, hey, let's do this differently. Like, let's try something else.
Ken, let's bounce it to you, and then we'll come back to Shad on this too. But I'm curious, when you look at the older models of leadership and development versus what you're looking at now, give me either a teaser, a recommendation, a question you like to ask. Give me something that points us now in the new direction of the skill sets, the leadership, the things that we need to be thinking about and to be equipping ourselves for success in the future, the new future.
Well, we addressed that in the book, actually, right toward the end. We identify the 6 styles. As I always say, if you don't have a system for leading, it will self-design itself. And the models that we've always used, we talk about in the book. You're going to self-design an autocratic style. You're going to self-design a compassionate style, a navigator style, a relentless style. You may put a few of them together, but that's kind of the model we've always used. I was raised in that model to some degree. Even you and Shad are old enough now to where you all have seen that. And I've always been interested in the full person. I've always spiritually, emotionally, one of my high energy areas is empathy, intellectual empathy. I'm not a physical empathy guy. If you fall down, break your leg, I probably don't care. But if you're hurt emotionally, I'm there for you. And that's a hard thing. And if you're an autocratic leader or a relentless leader, that's hard to admit or acknowledge, because if you've got that it factor, which is just basically you're born with it. And if you've got it, but you don't know how to use it. So the new model, the new way of going about that is really this two-sided. Now, I've always been interested in the mid-market. This is not a new topic in the enterprise companies. They've been dealing with it. They've been they've been prosecuting this discussion for a number of years. They've had to. In the mid-market where I focus and where we focus it's not been something that's been talked about. It's almost like we're afraid to go there. So we try to make it safe to go there and not make you less effective, not make you afraid to be that full leader. Bob Chapman in his book, Everybody Matters, does a great job of talking about that and how do you connect. So I would say the old models we talk about in the book, the new model is going to be more of a complete person, but we're really focused on that mid-market group in which that's where the work has not been done.
Yeah. Shad, what would you add in terms of old versus new and where we're headed? What's something that we all need to take under consideration?
Yeah, I describe, and this is a generalization, so it's not entirely fair, and but you'll get the point. Most of us have been shaped by fear and shame based leadership or styles of motivation. So most of us have been shaped around coaches and teachers and parents and bosses that used relationship as a threat, not a source of courage. So the fear playing sports was, man, if I don't perform, my coach is going to be mad at me. My dad is going to be upset with me if I don't hit the grades. And a lot of times that was true. Like that wasn't just like it's no, you're wrong. But it's like, no, that was true. Like, or they would use their authority to shame people, to point out, and they use that as a source of motivation. And what you find is all that does is, again, you may get short-term results, but you are deteriorating the hearts and the minds and the souls of the people that you're supposedly leading. And so I would make the distinction that that's not leadership, that's exploitation. And so what we're trying to move toward is really the question to ask as a leader for myself. And I have not perfected this. That's why we say this is a path, not a pill. It's a lifetime of a journey. It's do I want more for the people I lead than I want from them? And that's a paradigm shifting question. Like, do I want more for them or from them? And if I'm honest and humble enough to say, man, I'm really more interested in what they do for me. And that's the quote we use and joke about with Henry Ford. You know, he made some quip related to the fact that he said, I really just wanted a set of hands to build some cars, but I got hands with a human attached and with a heart and a brain. It's like, I don't have to deal with all that. And so what we're learning in leadership is that you got a whole human, and your role as a leader in their life is pretty significant, and there's tons of potential and opportunity. So shifting from that fear and shame base that says, hey, if you don't do right, then, verse, I'm with you. I'm going to be a part of this process with you. You don't have to be perfect. I have expectations, and there are consequences, and my relationship is like I'm connected to you, and that's not at stake.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of the shift.
One of the things that I was listening to Shad talk about that, in a term that we didn't create. We'll take credit for it because I don't know where it came from, but it's a term. If you really want a leadership model, we use the one called a warrior monk. There's got to be both sides of that. If you're going to go forward in this marketplace, people are changing, the world, all of that is very obvious. But this idea that I'm going to make you less dynamic, I'm going to make you less powerful, that's not something that's at risk here. What we want to do is make you aware of, as Shad says, how do you do that? How do you get more for them than from them? And boy, that's a big piece of the change.
Yeah. So talk about the program and talk about how people can access the next step. Because as we mentioned, the book is kind of the door opener, but you have a program in place. So talk about the actual program.
We are doing a number of things. We're learning, first of all, because we've only had 2 years of this, or into our second year with our group. So it is a year-long program. It's about 70 or 80 hours, but we make it like an online, if you will, master's program. And we're learning to do it online, which I wouldn't have thought was possible, but it's actually working out very good. We're producing these things and putting them out there. We're doing some in-person meetings, do a lot of one-to-one work and all of that. But the best way to learn about this, if you want to talk to me or Shad, we love to have those conversations. What does the program look like? How do you engage in it? When's the next class going to open up? Just go on our website, edmundson.group, and click on leadership training up at the top. But those are a couple of ways. It's out there on Facebook. It's out there in all the media places. But I think if you're interested in a conversation about breaking away from that old model that you're feeling encumbered by, we think we've got something here that will help you. But access through the internet, through our website, or call me or Shad, or we've got that information in the book as well. And the book is a free download. So you just go on the website and you can download it. Or if you're just one of those like me, you want a hard copy, we'll get you one. Don't worry about it. We're not in the business of selling books.
Absolutely. So, hey, well, Edmundson.group, make sure and check them out. Once again, the book, Next Level Leadership, Navigating the Dramatic Changes Coming in the 2020s, Edmundson.group. And Ken, Shad, thank you for all you do and for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it.
You bet, buddy. We're honored. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for all you do as well. Appreciate it.